The EPA is under fire from all sides. 3 million gallons of toxic wastewater spilling into a river in Colorado, spreading to other states. And who's responsible? Guess what? The Environmental Protection Agency itself.
It's a major embarrassment for the agency, and it comes as the Obama administration and the EPA are facing lawsuits over new regulations giving that agency more control over America's waters, and the president's new rules on climate change as well. Dale Hurd has the story.
The move by states and businesses will challenge the authority of the Environmental Protection Agency, saying its actions have violated both the Clean Air Act and the Constitution. The president announced the new limits on power plant emissions last week.
The EPA is setting the first ever nationwide standards to end the limitless dumping of carbon pollution from power plants.
With Congress unable to stop the president, the courts may be the only hope at beating back the new carbon limits until a new president takes office in 2017. This latest court action comes as the EPA already faces suits from at least 29 states for redefining the waters of the United States that would place farm irrigation ponds, roadside ditches, even patches of desert that get wet under the Clean Water Act. Opponents say the rule enables bureaucrats to control virtually anything that gets wet. Meanwhile, who will protect the environment from the EPA? An agency screw-up at Colorado's Gold King mine has sent 3 million gallons of highly toxic wastewater into the Animas River toward Lake Powell in Utah, and possibly into the Grand Canyon. The EPA originally said it was 1 million gallons before tripling its estimate to 3 million.
It's scary. I mean, it's dangerous.
The EPA is under fire for waiting almost 24 hours to notify state and local officials of the spill. The agency admits it's at fault and could face more action in court over the spill. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
You see, they want to take over everything. You know, I think we want clean water. We want clean air. We don't want to have a polluted planet, and we want to be stewards of the planet. But we don't want to turn our lives over to faceless bureaucrats in Washington to decide what's right and what isn't. The whole idea, you got a little bit of standing water in your backyard, and suddenly you're subject to the Environmental Protection Agency's Clean Water Act, and they can regulate what you do on your backyard. It's crazy, but that's the way it is with the bureaucrats. And so you have the Veterans Administration mishandling veterans, and you have the EPA mishandling wastewater. And you have countless government agencies, especially in dealing with health care, mishandling our health care. They'll destroy everything if you let them have it, but the so-called progressives want that, and they'll tell you it's for your good. Well, trust me, it's not. Well, it's become an embarrassment for the Republicans, but the Donald is not backing down. Donald Trump says he won't apologize for his remarks about Fox News anchor Megyn Kelly. Ephraim Graham has that story from the CBN newsroom. Here's Ephraim.
Pat, at last week's Republican debate, Kelly asked Trump about his views on women based on past negative comments. Trump fired back and believes he has not said anything wrong.
You could see there was blood coming out of her eyes. Blood coming out of her wherever. She asked me a very nasty question. I have nothing against Megyn Kelly, but she asked me a very, very nasty question.
Trump says he's referring to blood coming from Kelly's nose and not making any offensive remarks, but some Republicans are not happy with him. Erick Erickson, the host of this weekend's conservative Red State Conference, uninvited Trump from the event. CBN's David Brody spoke with Erickson about that decision.
I mean, Mr. Trump usually says these are my events and my podium and I can do these things. Well, this is my event, my podium, and I can do this.
What is the reaction you've been receiving? I know there's been some, you mentioned some positive stuff, but you getting
I'm getting some really angry mail from some just deeply unhinged people, which I think bolsters the point that I did the right thing, that the level of anger has reached a point where it's neither controllable nor healthy. I've gotten emails from people referring to the president by the N-word, saying really derogative things about Megyn Kelly and myself.
The Republican candidates will debate again at the Reagan Library in September. Pat?
There was an article in the Wall Street Journal, editorial about this guy Erickson. He was a fan of Trump. He was building up Trump, and they're basically saying, you created this monster, now you don't like him. It's interesting how they're going back and forth, but the Republicans are feeling an extraordinarily strong slate of candidates. They have former governors. They have the former CEO of a $90 billion international corporation. They've got some pretty powerful people and very articulate. And it's a shame for that whole thing to get hijacked by a guy who's, he's sort of a, what do you call him? A showman, something. But he's a rich showman. He's done very well. Ephraim?
Pat, it is a battle pitting same-sex marriage against religious freedom. A federal judge rules this week in the case of a Kentucky clerk who stopped issuing all marriage licenses after the Supreme Court legalized gay marriage. And Kim Davis isn't the only clerk watching to see what the judge decides.
Liberty is a small Kentucky town that's gained national attention in recent weeks. At the heart of it, Casey County Clerk Casey Davis.
I watched this show the other day where they devoted around 20 minutes of time trying to insult my intelligence and call me everything and say every kind of vulgar thing that they could.
That's because Davis stopped issuing all marriage licenses after the U.S. Supreme Court legalized gay marriage.
When the ruling came down, I was placed in a dilemma of what to do and how to be fair and not discriminate.
Davis is a devout Christian. He and nearly 60 other clerks sent letters to the governor, Steve Beshear, asking for a special legislative session to protect their religious liberty. Davis even met with the governor personally.
What he wanted was simply for me to, quote, do my job or do the honorable thing and resign.
As clerk, Davis serves about 16,000 residents here in Casey County. In 2014, his office issued just 29 marriage licenses, and so far in 2015, just 43.
One of the smallest parts of my job has become what's engulfing all of my life and time.
Casey Davis isn't alone. Whitley County Clerk Kay Schwartz also stopped issuing licenses. And Rowan County Clerk Kim Davis, who faces a lawsuit.
Rowan County Clerk Kim Davis isn't talking publicly about the lawsuit filed against her, but she did testify in court. The decision to stop issuing all marriage licenses came only after prayer and fasting.
Kim Davis has now filed suit against the governor.
The county clerk's office touches more lives in Kentucky communities than any other elected official or office.
Boone County Clerk Kenny Brown temporarily stopped issuing licenses, and he considered resigning. Instead, he's working on legislation that would take the task of issuing marriage licenses out of the hands of the clerk's office and online instead.
I believe that this is going to be an issue just like abortion. Abortion decision was made 40 years ago. This is going to come up in every political race, whether you're running for county clerk, Congress, or city council, as long as it's in an elected official's hands as far as issuing it, licensing, sanctioning.
Violence erupted at a Sunday protest marking the first anniversary of the police shooting that killed 18-year-old Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. Peaceful protesters marched throughout the day to remember the young black man killed by a white police officer. Those demonstrators ran for cover after two groups got into a gun battle. St. Louis police say several people opened fire on officers and their cars. 4 detectives shot a young man armed with a stolen gun. He was rushed to the hospital in critical condition.
There is a small group of people out there that are intent on making sure that we don't have peace that prevails.
Give all my love to my family, my friends, my people, my new friends.
That was Brown's father. He led hundreds of demonstrators in a quiet march on Sunday. New York Senator Chuck Schumer is facing the wrath of the left wing after he came out against President Obama's nuclear deal with Iran late last week. The Hill reports that liberal activists and former top Obama administration officials believe his action may disqualify him from being the next Democratic leader of the Senate after Harry Reid. Liberal groups are pushing hard for the nuclear deal with Iran, but with Schumer and New York Congressman Eliot Engel, the top Democrat on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, both opposing the plan, the president could well have a tougher road getting it approved in Congress. Pat?
Well, I congratulate Chuck Schumer for a bold stand. Of course, the large vocal element in his state are the Jewish business people, and he's Jewish himself, and I don't think he wants to go against the will of his people. In addition, he's a smart man, and he knows this is a terrible deal. And I think all of us as Americans ought to realize that Iran wants to destroy us. They have said it over and over again. They want to destroy Israel, and then they want to go after the United States. They have said it, and said it again. Why don't we believe them?